here we are in the dungeon.
Yeah, the vault. The dungeon of Channel 9, where they keep all the old films, kinnies, all the old commercials.
Yeah, a couple of old TV hosts as well.
But look at the cobwebs and the dust.
Oh, yes.
And I should tell you, I'm an asthmatic,
You're
so
joking.
I can't stay down here too long.
I'll give you a spray a bit later.
But I miss the audience. I miss the orchestra, the
yes.
chorus,
Yeah.
the ballet, the lights.
Maybe so.
I miss the glamour, buddy.
Phil, it was all here in 1957. Tell us the date.
The date was the 6th of May, 1957, the birth of IMT.
Graham Kennedy's in Melbourne tonight.
Graham was just 17, and Melbourne fell in love with this likeable rogue.
You know, this reminds me of the first time I went into Norm Spencer's office. I went in to see Norm Spencer for a job. And typical of Norm, he jobbed me.
But it wasn't just Graham's career that got its start back then. Television was also the beginning for a lot of this country's finest entertainers. Here, for instance, is a very young Denise Drysdale, enthusiastically playing the part of a drum in the Junior Niners. She was just 12 years old.
This song by Kamal was recorded in 1960, which is interesting, as Kamal claims he was last year celebrating just 25 years in showbiz. Dancing alongside visiting American Alan Sherman is a teenage Jackie Weaver.
Roaming in the street somewhere downtown.
A parlour program called Boomer Ride featured a 17-year-old Olivia Newton-John.
Appearing at Channel 9 was very convenient for one member of the Seekers. Athol Guy worked here in the station's scheduling department at the time. As part of the Allen brothers, Peter Allen made his first appearance here at Channel 9 in 1961 with his stage brother, Chris Bell.
And this would be heavenly.
Helen Reddy made her TV debut here. She later went on to win a talent quest and a trip to New York. The rest is history.
Miss Lonely Heart, he doesn't anymore.
Notice the girl in the back row? She went on to become Mrs. Bert Newton, seen here with June Bronhill. Patty had a long and happy relationship with IMT. Duos were popular then. Barry Crocker was just a young bloke from Geelong, treading the boards as duo Crocker and Clark.
Blackbird, bye, 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 bye.
Crocker and Clark, the good old days of television. I wonder what Clark's doing today.
Who cares?
But it's good to see those old clips of Kamal from 1960.
And Helen Reddy, actually, on her appearance there, won a one-way trip to America. And, of course, she had to stay there to work to work her passage.
But are you also aware that she later recorded a song called One Way Ticket?
That's right.
Helen Reddy without tiara in the early days of television.
That's right.
Well, buddy, I know we work together on radio every night, but I've got a surprise for you now. Guess what I've got between my legs?
Oh, yeah, wouldn't want to guess.
Guess what I want to show you?
What?
An old film spool.
Oh.
And this goes back to my very first television commercial in 1958 in Studio 2 here. Would you like to see it?
Well, I thought it was the best of Philip Brady, but I'd love to see the ad.
Because, you see, I am really a child of television.
Yeah, well,
forget radio.
Stick your dummy in and let's have a look at it.
I was born in front of a television camera.
You'll be dead in a minute.
As this shows you.
Yes, it's designed to help you float through your housework.
You look about 12 there.
Well, it was 1958.
With live commercials, it was a case of anything goes, or more often than not, things that didn't.
Huey, could I have some power, please? Ladies and gentlemen, whatever you do.
Well, Wolf had 2 goes. Here's one of mine.
Whitmud comfort trousers are so comfortable, Graham, it's almost like wearing no pants at all.
Thank you, Superman, you filthy beast.
Thank you, Graham.
Oh, Superman.
Yes, Graham?
You forgot something?
Oh, thanks.
That's all right.
By the way, now is the time to spray your fruit trees and ornamentals. Have you sprayed your ornamentals lately? Well, it's a good thing to always keep a bit of spray on them. Yes. Because, you see, if you don't spray your ornamentals, they'll get fungus on them.
One of the reasons Graham was the king was he could get away with anything.
Including Biff's latest snack, pussy. Yes, now you can buy pussy in a can. Pussy in a can, what will they think of next? Peter, could you cut away from me for just a moment? Pussy in a can!
Pet food was a popular item on IMT, and this night when Graham brought his dog Rover into the show, has gone down into television history probably as the most repeated piece of footage ever.
Come on, now. Come on, come on. Rover? Oh, he's...
But it wasn't just Graham that had dog problems. Hal Todd didn't have much luck either.
Now, the cameraman won't bite you. You can have it. I know it's too good to eat. You'd prefer to stand there. I know. Well, I join you. Honestly. Oh, the heavens be praised.
But enough about dogs. Here's Phil having another go.
Just like that? I don't care, Jack. If I can't wear my new Stamina Jetline slacks, I'm not wearing anything.
Bert Newton had his share of commercials also.
But I tell you what, have you tried Hi-Ho Yet by Samuel Taylor?
And teamed with Graham, they sold everything from fly spray to shoes.
And for your feet and my feet, the price is the same. So make your objective a mudguard or executive. You'll be most selective. Remember the name.
How would you like a good poke? No. Come back here. Soldier! You gave me an order, I went to fiddle that. Stop it! Soldier, as you know, we are engaged in an Soldier, as you know... I might take this off. You know I'm a captain, don't you?
Yes.
Call me Major Roderhead. We are Major Roderhead. We are... I'll have a word to you later, Corporal Punishment. What will it be? As you know, we are engaged in an all-out war against flies.
True.
Now, we've got a brand new weapon to help us, and the brand new weapon is this one. It's called Johnson's Protector. Oh, yes, with the sharp-shooting top. Deadly to flies, but completely safe to use. Attention! Right, pick up your weapon and show it proudly in your hand. Right here. Attention! Now, take your weapon. Present weapons. Wrong hand.
You're wrong, Captain.
I'm not. Yes, I am, actress. Yes. Now I'll show you how to use it. Ready? 1. Grasp your protector. Grasp your protector. By the hand. Keep it up there. Grasp your protector in the right hand.
I can understand you, Captain.
Now, present weapon. Out the front, out the front. It's out the front, out the front. Now, release safety catch. Get yours out.
Mine's gone down the thing.
Mine's dropped in too. Could we have 2 new... Hey, protectors.
Xavier Hugard.
Yes, I'll be Abby Lane. You be Abby...
Can we have... Oh, it doesn't matter, no. Now, 1, 2, 3, aim and fire!
It was great fun because most of it was ad-lib. You knew what your product was. Products like Seedle was one, Seedle hair care products.
Seedle's new health and beauty shampoos will keep your hair softer and brighter for longer than ever.
We would do 6 a night, and it was just go for it and hope for the best. And Graham, of course, would try and make fun out of it all, which he always did, and we would expect anything to happen. That was part of the charm of doing it, expecting something unusual to happen.
I'm sorry, Rose, what does it remind you of?
It reminds me of the sparkle that you get from using Seedle shampoos on your
By
hair.
jingo, that is a wonderful ad-lib. Rosemary, you've won me. I won't do any bird impressions tonight because I've gone off the bird impressions. Want the bird impressions? Do you like the crow, the kookaburra? I'll get him over with first.
All right, that's a good idea. All over with first.
I was used to Graham doing bird calls right through our commercials, you know, like as much as to say, oh, I'm bored with all this, get the commercials off.
Nature meant it. Use them twice a week, and don't forget Seedle's hair conditioner, will you? Because it really works wonders on damaged hair. It is very simple. What did you mean by that?
Oh, a little tiny... I couldn't resist. I did a little crow noise there.
Thank you, Rosemary. And the thing about that crow call, Graham Kennedy was taken off live television because of that.
Hi, folks. How are you? It's very good to see you.
Yes. We're not seeing much of you tonight because we're going to take a break and we'll be back with the sketches.
Just go easy. This is my return to primetime TV. I'm making every post a winner.
Yes, in a dungeon. Back with the sketches, an integral part of IMT in a minute.
Oh, Avon! What do you call the other one?
Darryl Summers, what are the compares of in Melbourne tonight?
Yes, there were more compares than just Graham and later Bert. There was about 70 compares.
71?
Well, of course, I used to compare IMT on a Thursday night.
That's right.
Were you ever asked to do an IMT?
No, I was really a child of radio in those days, Phil.
Yes, you really don't have a face for television, do you?
Listen,
can I tell you?
Listen, you've turned dirty since you lost Sale of the Century. You really have.
No, that's not true.
Let's go back to those golden... Look at and share some of the memories of those 71 compares of IMT.
On Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, the 4 days of the week you see.
In 1970, IMT ran with a different host each night. In 1 week, you could see Ugly Dave Gray on Mondays.
Now, I tell a few old stories, but some of them are new.
Jimmy Hannon on Thursdays.
Weekly and sing a song or two.
Stuart Wagstaff on Tuesdays.
We hope that you will all agree.
And Bert Newton, presented on Wednesdays IMT, with a show full of familiar faces.
There you go. Are you Mr. Farnham's secretary?
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, don't you know it's unlucky to have an umbrella up in the house?
Oh, I know. But raindrops keep falling on my head.
Oh, Brady, really messages for me, love?
Yes, well, actually, there is, Mr. Farnham.
Here's the Noel Ferrier Show.
Fridays became Noel Ferrier's.
And here's Noel.
And his IMT was considered by many to be ahead of its time.
When I was given the gig, I thought, well, what am I going to do? It can't be the same as Graham, because I'm not like Graham, or Bert. And so we changed it all a bit around. We had a writer, and we pulled in all sorts of people like Tony Lamond, Frank Thring, Fred Parslow, Mary Harding. Became a sort of repertory company on the Friday night. And because I think Channel 9 didn't quite know what to make of us or what to do with us, they just let us have full reign. And we virtually were able to do pretty well what we wanted to.
Now listen off it. The kids are at home and the telly's broken down.
It was all to Channel 9's credit. They had a workshop, a wardrobe department that could pretty well come up with anything we wanted. at very late notice. And that was the way Channel 9 worked in those days. It was all due to this 5 nights a week schedule they had of 5 variety shows a week. It was an enormous output when you look back on it. And it was something really good to think that you were involved in it.
So Jimmy Hannon's IMT featured a segment you could only describe as a forerunner for the home shopping network.
And,
it was called Hannon's Hock Shop.
The most important part there. All right, so there it is. That's item number 1. If you'd like that, Mr. W of Mount Waverley would love to hear from you on 420201.
The most unusual guest host would have had to have been Catholic priest Father Michael King.
Who gets the fee for tonight's performance?
Yeah, I knew somebody would ask them. Well, I thought, first of all, you know, of my manager, Monsignor Harry Miller.
I came over to GTV as an announcer. But of course, in those days, being on live variety shows like in Melbourne Tonight, we were asked to do a myriad number of tasks. Sometimes it was a song and dance act, even though we couldn't sing. They said, you're going to do a song next week on the show. Oh, sing, I've never sung. You were sent down and we had a trainer, a music teacher, for goodness sake. Then we had to do dance steps. We weren't dancers.
And now, here's Stuart.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It was great fun, and some of them were very funny, some were appalling. But I've got good memories of them. The worst memory, of course, is a wonderful actor called Patrick Wymark, who was playing in Sleuth, a play called Sleuth, and he just brought the play to Melbourne, and he was due to appear on the show. Now, I'd done a television show with him and the American actor Richard Deacon about Hans Christian Andersen thing, and we'd all got on very well and laughed a lot. So we decided we'd all meet on IMT on this particular night, prior to the opening of Sleuth. So Richard Deacon was there, and there was no sign of Pat Wymark, and we knew he'd like to drink. So we were making jokes about, oh, he's probably flat on the floor, smashed.
And I'm sorry that Patrick pooped out.
Yes,
Is that a bad word? I'm sorry. Every time I open...
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah. Richard, no, his play opens this Thursday, and he's been over-rehearsing after a long season in Sydney, and he is pooped out.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't buy that for 1 minute.
In fact, he was flat on the floor, but he was dead. In the Sheraton Hotel in Spring Street, he was lying there dead, and they found him, and they said to me, will you announce it halfway through the show? I said, no, I'll announce it at the end of the show. I didn't want to kill the show. Killed him.
During the show, we received a message that Patrick Wymark, the star of the Power Game and the Planemakers, and here to open in Sleuth on Thursday night, collapsed and died in his Melbourne hotel this evening. Good night.
If that was a low light for Stuart, Tony Lamont was a highlight for IMT viewers.
I've got rhythm, I've got music, I've got my man who could ask for anything more.
Not only was she the first act on Melbourne TV with husband Frank Sheldon, but also one of the few women to host IMT.
So we were on the first night. We were the opening act of the first night on GTV9 when it went from being a piano factory to Channel 9. And then later on, when Graham started to do his In Melbourne Tonight, we were engaged on staff because they had staff people who would sing, dance, do comedy sketches. They needed people with theatrical experience.
I always thought you and Judd Lane...
I love you, and don't you forget it. That makes 20 times that I play.
It's very monotonous.
I love you, and don't you forget it. No.
You never knew, you never got to rehearse in front of an audience. It's not like now you go out and you hone your skills and you say, oh, that didn't work last night, so we'll cut that. This was live to air, this was it, this was the whole thing. The funniest ones were when the scenery would fall down around you or whatever, and the most hilarious was the one we did where Graham Kennedy and Joff Ellen were the two babies, and Rosie Sturgis and I were the two nurses, and we had the two of them in the prams, and that is my most vivid memory.
But it was Graham who made those early days his own, and his appeal earned him the title, the King of Variety Television.
This is called Twisty Train, and you can twist it into all kinds of shapes. It looks like that. You can make the famous cold weather train. That's that one. There's the famous Spirit of Progress. And then there's that famous Latin train, Spiritus Spiritus Erectus. Commonly known as Puffing Belly. And that can't happen again, thank God. This is really solid tonight. So, let's get on with the show.
You're standing up to it.
I'm having the time of my life. Why do you ask?
Just that your carnation's wilting.
Oh, don't worry about that.
Just cut the laughter out. Listen, we're going back to look at some of the girls who entertained us in the dungeon over the years.
Well, I think you could phrase that better.
No. We're going to go through the archives to look at some of the ladies that entertained us.
Oh, the Luton Girls Choir.
Oh,
remember those days?
Them.
Were you here?
But here's something. Yes, I was.
I'll never forget that picnic at Hanging Rock.
Neither will they. Let's now look at some of the girls. And start off with a bit of a sing-along with a song we all grew up with.
Oh, yes.
The Tarak Show was a household favourite every afternoon at 5 o'clock. And one lady who was a regular performer was Patty McGrath.
She was 15 when she started and then went on to become a regular on IMT.
When I first started, I was straight from school, fairly naive, and because I was working with people like Joff and Graham and Bert and Pete Smith and Buster Fidesz and all those people and Rosie, it was wonderful for me because I learnt so much from them. And because I was the young kid, they all protected me and made sure that I didn't smoke or drink or go out with bad men or anything like that. I'd come in so early in the morning and stay late at night and never want to go home. So my memories are, I think it's the happiest time of my life.
But who told you about me?
My fiancé, Prince Pussypuff.
Well, I think in the comedy sketches, sometimes they were very good and sometimes they weren't so good. And in the ones that weren't so good, Graham looking at me with cross eyes or something like that often made me laugh.
Oh, please don't. Let me know. You did not intend to do me wrong. You did not intend to do me wrong, did you?
Patty wasn't the only one to get the Kennedy treatment. Here's a young and buxom Denise Drysdale.
How long? Where did you come from?
The other side of the island.
How long have you been there?
Oh, 6 months.
Good. Now she tells me.
To be there watching people like Graham Kennedy and Noel Ferry and Fred Parslow, all these fabulous people at the beginning of television was just marvellous. And you couldn't help but just watch and learn from these people because they were just so good.
Oh, come here! Come back! Oh, you dirty blowfly! Where are you? Good heavens! Come back! Come back real fast! Good heavens! Oh, I'm glad I've got one of those. Where are you? Come back! Come back!
was exciting. And well, I can't say it's not exciting now, but as a kid, you can imagine looking up to these people, and I used to walk around the building with my mouth open, I would imagine, going,
a friend in need.
Two more of Graham's leading ladies were Sue Donovan, now McIntosh, and Joy Westmore.
Oh, yes, fine. Good night, Alice. Good night, Carol. Good night, Bob.
Good night, Ted.
It was, really, it was the best of possible worlds, the best of all possible worlds. It was fun, it was interesting, it was challenging too, because we used to come in to do the blackouts, as we called them, in the afternoons.
The paper says it's the coldest morning for years.
Oh, it must be. Even the milk's frozen.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. I mean, those bottles have been out there for hours.
Oh, who said anything about bottles?
Really, we were quite naughty sometimes, and Graham, of course, was always very, very much in control. We really did enjoy ourselves on camera. I mean, it was a bit naughty, really, but at the same time, because we enjoyed it so much, everybody else enjoyed it so much.
Oh, my poor darling. Oh, my darling husband. What am I going to do? Good morning.
Hello, who are you?
Oh, look.
Oh, Avon. What do you call the other one?
George Wilson would have been lost without Rosie Sturgis as his darling Joyce. Together they captured our hearts as the Wilsons.
George, I was thinking, dear, it might be nice for you and I to have a little get-together tonight.
I'll be in that, Joyce.
George, I didn't...
Get together.
George, I didn't mean that sort of thing.
Come on.
George, what I meant was, we'd have a little do.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
George, be your age.
Joyce, remember what they say. The oldest fiddles play the best tune.
Oh? Then it's a pity your bow is broken.
Oh, the Wilsons, really ahead of their time, weren't they, Bruce?
Indeed. And in a moment, a dramatic moment in sport.
On Friday night at 8 o'clock, Norman Smith received a letter sent by special delivery.
Tony Charlton's Football Show.
On Friday night at 8 o'clock, Norman Smith received a letter sent by special delivery. The letter produced the bombshell that his appointment as coach of the strongest football club in the history of the game was cancelled as from that date.
There was nothing bigger in sport at that time than the sacking of Norm Smith. He was such a giant figure in the game. I see that he was named, and I certainly supported it, as the coach of the century. He just had so many fantastic attributes. He was straight to the point. He was knowledgeable. He was a great person for getting on with people, and he knew how to lose, which wasn't easy for somebody who was so competitive. But when he was sacked, it was like a bomb went off in Melbourne.
Who is this man, Norman Smith, and why has this decision had such a widespread effect on this community? Why, indeed, has it created nothing less than a furor? Well, we will try to answer those questions and those in between in this special sports show on a monumental football decision.
The ratings went through the roof on that particular Sunday, and on the Monday, the Sun News Pictorial devoted the first 4 pages to what Norm Smith said on television on GTV9 the day before.
So he said, eat humble pie. Ever eaten humble pie? It's got an awful taste, but I ate humble pie, and I tricked the committee. They expected me to blow up, and they had the opportunity. Well, instead of that happening there and then, they waited for something else to happen. And it didn't happen. So then they created 2 lies. They created 2 lies and put it in writing and sent it out by special messenger just to get rid of me.
Footballers even had their own quiz show, the Ampol Big Game.
Back we go. It's over to Ken Fraser again.
I'll take a stab at a general knowledge, I think, Tony.
General knowledge question for a goal. All right, Fraser, here we go. The Suez Canal connects the Red Sea with what other sea?
The Mediterranean.
That's right, it's a goal.
No clues now, no clues.
The score's 11 in the first quarter of the Essendon versus Collingwood tie. And the cheer squads are really hollering, aren't they? Half a minute to go. All right, here's your bounce-up question. See who's first to answer it. Which team has been wooden spooners the most times? Right, Trevor?
St Kilda.
St Kilda. How many times, do you know? It doesn't matter. 18 times. 18 times it is. Down here to the half-forward line. Mickey Bone. Time's running out. You'll have to...
No, quick, Ian.
You want a quick one to Ian. Who coached Footscray to their 1954 premiership?
Go with that.
While we're looking at Tony, we can't pass up the Rudkin incident.
Champion. And now on a line to London, we're talking to Mrs. Ellen Rudkin. Hello, Mrs. Rudkin. How are you?
I beg your pardon?
Can you hear us? We're talking to you from Melbourne, Australia. Mrs. Rudkin.
Yes. I'm Mrs. Rudkin.
Well, it's 10 o'clock at night there. That's the time situation, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
We're calling you from a television studio which already has a program in presentation. It's the morning of the fight in Melbourne, and we're wondering if you have had any contact in the last 24 hours with your husband.
I'm afraid I'm not Mrs. Alan Rudkin. I'm Mrs. A.E. Rudkin. I'm afraid...
I didn't ring her. The producer rang her upstairs, put the call through, and it was supposed to be the Mrs. Rudkin that we were interested in, and instead of which this extraordinary conversation ensued.
So you're no relation to the Empire boxing champion who fights in Melbourne tonight?
No, what a pity, isn't it?
You know, Phil, I was working on that show, and I did see Tony Charlton make that phone call.
What a dobber. He won't take the rap for anything.
You be careful what you're saying.
Oh, he wouldn't mind. He's an old friend. Remember, I go back to the very early days here in the dungeon.
Yes.
I feel like the Phantom of the Opera down
you
here.
belong. Well, I'll try and get in for you. In a moment, we look at the quiz shows and Tommy Hanlon Jr.
How are you out there? Got a cup of tea and you want to sit down?
Game shows through the years.
Well, I was one of the first game show compeers here at GTV. I had my own show at the age of 20, Concentration. Remember?
Yes, I do. You pinched it from my Uncle Terry Deer. It killed him in the end.
No, it was the other way around. I did the local version for GTV.
I'm sorry.
And he took it over nationally.
Not the way he told it in his last
Like
gasp.
a praying mantis he was. He just took the show from under a pimply kid like me.
He called you a parasite. And I know what he means now. But here are the game shows.
It could be you, Mrs. Annie Manson of Goroka, New South Wales. It could be you, Mrs. Edna McLean of Belmont, Geelong. Or it could be you. And now here is your master of surprises, Tommy Hanlon Jr.
Rick's playing up again up there. How are you out there? Got a cup of tea and you want to sit down?
It was done in America, and they said to me at Channel 9, would you like to do It Could Be You? And I said, yes, if I can rewrite it. So I put in comedy, and I put in dares, and I put in reunions, and I put in everything, 25 segments a week.
Mrs. Dorothy Sayers of Craddock Street, North Geelong.
By today's standards, you could just add the words, come on down, and it kind of looks familiar.
And you tell me a number, and if that four-leaf clover's in back of it, you've got all those prizes.
It became probably the highest rating afternoon show anywhere in the world, 42s and 50s. And they threw everything against me from other channels. I Love Lucy, first run pictures, everything. Finally they said, give them the half hour.
The show became so popular, they even had to build a new post office in Richmond.
Oh, I can't. We're weak today.
Oh! Huh? Who did this to you? I haven't got a clue. You're married to John.
Yes.
Good. You're not nervous.
Yeah, a little bit.
No, you're not with me. They're all just like us watching. You're celebrating your 26th anniversary this year.
Yes.
And you're buying your own home in Broadmeadows.
That's right, Tom.
And, can I call you Connie?
Yes, certainly.
Connie has 15 children.
as far as we know, every person that we tricked in and all was a trick. They never knew it. And you could tell by watching their faces because they aren't that good an actor.
And for your family of 17 at Christmas time, we're gonna surprise them, I think. Huh? Well, let me see what we got here, Connie. That hamper.
One of the most popular segments was the reunion, where Tommy would surprise a guest with a relative or friend they hadn't seen for years. But on this occasion, the tables were turned.
Our third and most important clue will be by our mystery relative, him or herself. Would you speak up?
I'm sorry, Tommy. This is Jill. There is no clue today because the mystery guest is your own mother.
Two contestants isolated from each other in soundproof booths. Both players racing to reach 9 points. Playing for television's highest money stakes. On the Big Nine!
Nice voiceover, Bruce.
Oh, thanks, Phil. We saw Ethel Guy earlier in the program. Well, he had his own game show, too. Ethel Guy! The champion on this particular night was a Mr. Hutton Gibson, who just happened to be Mel Gibson's father.
Hutton, $10,200. The highest amount that's ever been won on the Big Nine.
This show, called Double Your Dollars, was hosted by a famous hypnotist called Franklin. Quite frankly, the show put lots of viewers to sleep.
Good evening and welcome to the quiz show that puts the accent on people.
And here's the man with the words, your host of hints, Frank Wilson.
But the final word on those days goes to Tommy.
It was all ad-lib and black and white, and what you saw is what we did. That was television.
Wonderful memories there with John Farnham.
And you were the first to interview him on 3XY.
Yes, I was. A scrawny little plumber from Caulfield.
You were?
No, he was.
Oh, and of course music has always played such an important part in our television lives, hasn't it?
It has. Have a look at some of the international stars.
A potpourri for you.
It's almost 40 years since Tom Jones appeared on the BP Super Show. And he's still getting women's underwear thrown at him.
What's new, pussycat?
Trini Lopez, the Mexican superstar, actually started his career playing for pennies on the street corners of Dallas, Texas.
The dynamic voice of the hit song Goldfinger. Shirley Bassey was one of the most difficult artists to grace the studio floors of GTV.
That you should care for me.
Pat Boone was one of the most popular actor-singers of the late 50s with songs like April Love, Bernadine, and this one.
Here's the Catwoman herself, Eartha Kitt. I seem to remember she particularly fancied Bert Newton.
Cat about the boy.
Visiting our shores from the USA in 1960, entertainers D'Lo and Daly made such an impact on the Australian public, they had their own series.
For the song in the air.
One of the biggest pop stars ever to tour here, Mark Winter, loved Australia so much, he married one of the Channel 9 ballet girls.
Just wanna be expressively yours.
The darling of the war years, Marlene Dietrich was one of the all-time Hollywood greats to visit our studios.
For you, Lily Marley.
And finally, here's Frank Sinatra, the chairman of the board, when he was only a vice president.
Day and night, night and day.
Well, Well, it's been terrific being with you, and we've really just scratched the surface. The reason I say this, we're angling to do the next one.
I've never known an hour to go so fast, have you?
Absolutely not.
Just before we leave, my hair was styled by Mr. Emilio of Berkeley Streets in
I'd like to thank Bob Stewart's for clothing me.
Shoes from Gilmore's of Glen Huntley.
My dry cleaning by Choice Dry Cleaners.
My magnetic corset from Dick Wick's products.
And I travel by Qantas.
Good night, buddy.
This is Bruce Mansfield.
And I'm Philip.
Good night. Good evening and welcome to The Way We Were, number 2. Back in the dungeon. Wouldn't you have thought after the first show we'd have got a dressing room or a studio?
Yes, well, I've changed. I've dressed for the occasion in tails. It didn't hurt the 3 tenors, did it? Hi, folks. How are you? It's very good to see you.
I feel as though I'm working with a penguin.
Like Fred and Ginger.
Yes, Fred and Ginger. Ginger Astaire and Fred Rogers?
No. Fred Flintstone and Ginger Meggs.
Now, listen, let's look at variety here at GDV over all the years. How many compeers in all?
Well, IMT was compared by no less than 73 different people over the years.
Amazing.
Yes, in fact, one of them at one time took a dislike to me. He put a funnel web spider in my underpants, but he really hated me. And
What's he doing now?
Time, I think,
right.
7 years. Do you know, there was one IMT compere. He used to attract a studio audience of 4 people. It was really pathetic. Yeah. 4 people would sit out front and clap him.
Yeah, I know the one. I'm working with him. But here is a highlight and a tribute to the compeers of IMT.
Mike Pressman swings like a pendulum do. Bobby's on bicycles 2 by 2. Westminster Abbey, the Tower of Big Ben, the rosy red cheeks of the little children.
And you know, Bruce, Bert was in everything.
Yes, as a guest on other people's shows or as a host of his own. And he deserved to be.
What about joining me in a round?
Oh, I thought you'd given that up.
You're back on it, aren't you? I don't mean that.
Well, listen,
what I mean is a song or something.
Well, listen, let's do the one we always do. All right? All right. Without you, I'm nothing. Without you, I'm nowhere. Without you, my life is stormy.
Graham and I were not going to work together on IMT. Norm Spencer felt that what he would like to do as program director was to put me into mornings, because television then began at around about, I guess, 1 o'clock lunchtime. He wanted to open up television first thing in the morning, which for that period of time was quite revolutionary, and for me to do in the morning what Graham was doing so successfully at night. So it happened that I was just wandering around the corridors being reasonably well paid to do nothing, the occasional commercial, the occasional voiceover. And my old friends at 7 were saying, they've brought you to the station to kill you, you know, to get you off air and the whole thing. I didn't believe that, and I was right and they were wrong. Because one day, for in Melbourne tonight, one of the announcers on the show took ill or suddenly drunk or something, and I was called on and did a commercial with Graham, and the 30-second commercial ran for 17 minutes, and it was very funny, I must admit, as I recall. They must have thought it was very funny too, because after the show, Norm called me aside and said, forget the morning program, you start on IMT as of tomorrow night, and that was it.
You've got to do you. No. Go on. A rest early in the morning.
Yes.
There's quite a difference with... I'll do one late at night first.
No, you've got to start off early in the morning.
Early in the morning.
Now, one late at night.
Ugly Dave Gray was another delight to work with, because I've always found that with great comedians, they know the jokes, but they also know how to dress them. And Dave, going into a sketch, would know the sketch word for word. What the rest of us around him wouldn't know was what he was going to add to it. And he had that aforementioned ability too.
The hardest sound to get is the sound... The hardest sound is the sound of B. B for... B for, And all...
Tremendous. And tonight's guest compere, Ugly Dave Gray.
Oh, boy, I'm lucky. Yes, I'll say I'm lucky. This is my lucky day.
Well, I've got Graham to thank again for that, because he decided to leave television in late '69, and I'd been doing his show on a pretty regular basis. And he said to the audience one night, "You've probably been reading in the papers that they're looking for a replacement for me." He said, "I don't think they need to look any further than Ugly Dave Gray."
Good evening, ladies. We've got a fabulous show for you tonight, really. I would like to tell you about one or two of the artists we have on for you tonight. We've got a stripper on for you tonight, a stripper with a difference. The difference is she finishes up fully clothed and you're all naked.
My first wife, Gail, she was a dancer originally, and I met her in a review in England. And when we came to Australia, I said, "Would you like to do a bit of comedy?" And she said, "Oh, I don't know if I can." So I said, "Can you keep a straight face?" So I used to do funny things in front of her, and she'd laugh. I said, "No, you've got to teach yourself not to laugh, because working deadpan, as we call it in showbiz, is very, very difficult."
You must give it feeling, you know, don't bring rock, everybody, rock.
No.
Not your sock. Rock.
And Jimmy Hannon, he was versatile.
Yes, he was, Phil. He was the only IMT compere to come from a game show as a contestant.
All right, you're watching my show tonight.
GTV was the production station of the whole TV industry. It was tremendous. Working with the ballet, there was Cole and Carol and Laurel and Fayette and many of the girls there. They were just tremendous group.
Living up and be alive.
Oh, I can remember having a shot at Tiny Tim.
Tiptoe through the tulips, all the tulips, that is where I'll find you. Tiptoe through the tulips, with me.
And then, like all red-blooded Aussie males, up the mighty blues, of course I put on a dress and played a Sheila at the Barrel.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, hello. I do believe, Stuart, that our phone contestant's name... now I can hear you, dear. Is Mrs. Eileen Hanson of flat 200... don't keep saying hello, dear. You sound like you only know one word. Flat 200, 150 Inkerman Street, St Kilda. Are you there, Eileen?
It's Eileen on the end.
Thank you, Eileen, on that end. It's Eileen on the end. Hello, Eileen. How are you, Eileen? Hello? 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 She's on the end! Yeah, I got
It was just the best feeling to work at GTV. It was really a great time.
Plant a tiny seed of the brightest gold.
Cheryl Gray, what an amazing girl. She was only 6 when her voice broke, and it remained that way.
Yes, but she later became Samantha Fox, didn't she?
She didn't, no. Cheryl Gray. She was Cheryl Gray forever.
No, she was the daughter of Reg Gray and Joan Clark.
They say never work with animals, as I am today, or children. But here's a good example. Here's a child from the IMT audience who wasn't too happy about his seating arrangement, and he decided to do something about it.
I wonder where he is today.
I got our feet away.
When, tonight?
Yes.
Oh, dirty. Well, how do you mean they gave your seats away?
We got special tickets from you to go in the front.
Oh,
And they didn't allow us to go in the front. We went backstairs, see.
yes, I see. Definitely a problem. Did you just come up of your own accord, or did someone suggest that you come up?
Well, my mother asked me to come up, so I came up and I But you see, Mummy wanted me to come up to give that cake to you.
Oh, yes.
And she asked me to make compensation, so I am.
That was Michael Lee. I'll bet his mum was proud of him.
I wonder if this girl's mother is just as proud.
Do you know what a liqueur is?
No, Graham.
Well, it's liquor. It's alcohol. Does anyone...
hate it.
Do you?
Yes.
How old are you?
9 and a half.
Have you ever had a glass of wine?
No.
A sip of Dad's beer?
No.
Does Dad have a beer?
No.
It's Mum that hits it, eh? Do you know anyone that drinks? Have you seen anyone drink?
Yes.
Who?
My auntie and uncle.
Oh. Is this frowned upon? I mean,
Pardon?
how does Mum and Dad feel about Auntie and Uncle getting on it?
Mummy said that she doesn't like Auntie Margaret.
Oh. Yes. Drink only because she has a sip or two. Yes, I understand. Oh.
Kids, here's a young Tony Sheldon with Graham Kennedy on IMT.
Do you really want to be a comedian when you grow up, or is that just the words of the song?
Oh, that's the word of the song.
Oh. How do you think it'd be being funny on television night after night?
I think it'd be a bit of a drag.
Bit of a drag. Bit of a drag. Well, listen, I'll run through some things, and you tell me if any of these vocations suit you. Or would you like to swing on a star, carry moonbeams home in a jar, and be better off than you are? Or would you rather be a mule?
A mule is an animal with long, funny ears. He kicks up at anything he hears. His back is frothy, but his brain is weak. He's just plain stupid with a stubborn streak.
And by the way, if you hate to go to school, you may grow up to be a mule.
You realise that's young Butch Sheldon, who today is Tony Sheldon, a very respected producer, director and writer. In fact, he's working with Rhonda Birchmore at the casino in Red, White and Blue.
No, in Red, Hot and Rhonda.
That's it. That's
Sounds like a flag. Phil...
What are these, Bruce?
Oh, shoes. They belonged to Jerry G. They were made by Ralph Merton, one of the big shoe sponsors in those days, and they clad the feet of one GG.
Yes, they used to lend them out to Michael Schilberger.
Ah, lovely Terex. Hello, boys and girls. How are you? Welcome to our program. We're going to tell you a lovely Christmas story tonight. Yes, now, just before we do anything at all, would you come a little bit closer, if you will, please? Ah, that's more like it. Thank you, Mr. Cameraman. Now, I'll open the page of this book, the first page. Just have a look at this, and this is how it all started.
Well, when I was in the army, which is a long, long time ago, a lot of the fellows were all groaning and moaning about carrying their equipment into this particular hut. And I thought to myself, well, I'm going to make it right. So I went out to the front of the place and I printed up the Happy Club. Next morning, the sergeant came in and he said, what happy so-and-so put that up there? And I had to step forward, and from that point on, I was known as Happy Hammond.
Oh, today I feel so happy, so happy, so happy. I don't know why I'm happy, I only know I am.
And every girl who watched TV dreamed of looking like Susan Gay Anderson.
Yes, Phil, and some of the blokes did as well.
This is the story of the magic mirror. It all happened a long, long time ago.
I'm not sure how I got into children's side of television. I think that probably I had the right image that they were looking for. You know, the girl next door, whatever it was. I wasn't a sophisticated person, and maybe that came through. And I genuinely liked children. I felt comfortable with them, and I guess they felt comfortable with me. So I think that might have had something to do with it.
What's your name?
My name's Ron.
And I'm Jerry. My name's Mark. And I'm Cindy.
Tell me, Would you like to believe in Christmas?
Oh, it would be wonderful. In Christmas and in all the other things that boys and girls like us believe in.
The annual Christmas Panto. Remember? Ernie Carroll and Denzelhausen produced it every year, and it was a lavish production for its time. Ron Blaskett and Jerry G appeared on The Tarak Show and IMT.
Yes, and had their own series, The Adventures of Jerry G.
That should have been, right, that should have been Jerry G and Ron Blaskett, and he said, Ron Blaskett and Jerry G.
Perhaps I'd better explain right at the outset. The little one is Jerry G.
Denzelhausen, who was a genius in my opinion, decided to make a series of films called The Adventures of Jerry G. And Jerry G had to walk, become Tarzan G, Pimpernel G, a la the Scarlet Pimpernel, all sorts of roles like that. And we accomplished this by means of having a little boy, the right size, who wore the same costumes, and we would intercut Jerry G himself with the little boy in long shot, and so Jerry G came to life. And in fact, it has been said to me recently by a young lady, I didn't know Jerry G could walk.
Well, Phil, how would you sum up those early days?
Well, Bruce, let's leave it to Happy, Ron, and Jerry.
It's a happy day, toodle-oodle-oodle-oodle-lay, for you and me, for us and we, all the clouds have rolled away. It's a happy day.
Remember? See, that goes back.
The sun shines bright and...
Well, they say that variety is the spice of life, and even Sir Eric Pearce got into the act, Bruce.
Yes, he did. Yes. Well, that's it. God bless you and you. Remember those days? Not a bad impersonation, eh?
Yeah, of Peter Hitchener, yes.
Oh, thanks. This used to be the old Heinz factory, which produced 57 varieties, didn't it?
Yes, I know.
And we at Channel 9 produced thousands upon thousands of variety shows.
I was part of many of those shows,
Yes.
as you'd well recall.
Rehearsals only. Elaine McKenna commenced her television career on The Tarak Show.
And the girl next door went on to become a much-loved member of the IMT family.
This is my lucky day.
A Little Touch of Ireland, with the fine voice of Bill McCormick.
When Irish eyes smiling.
Diana Trask, one of the first people to achieve international acclaim.
On Sing Along with Mitch.
Unforgettable in every way.
Cole Joy has been in the business for 40 years.
And he appeared often on IMT.
Lana Cantrell was just 17 when she performed on IMT.
Wasn't she Graham's fiancée?
Yes, for 20 minutes.
Singing a song, nothing but bluebirds all day long.
We all know this hit song performed by Frankie Davidson in these very studios.
In 1962.
Where Sydney side is meet. There's a million faces going places walking up and down the street.
Dorothy Baker was an IMT favourite.
And she still sings her Vera Lynn songs today.
We'll meet again some sunny day.
You know, Phil, of all those variety performers, just one or two remain.
That's very kind of you, Bruce. Thank you for the compliment.
I was talking about Darryl Somers.
I got my start through, the popular belief was through New Faces, but it was actually through an audition. I'd been on New Faces as a contestant, but it was an audition with Ernie Carroll, who was Aussie, and it was in June of 1971, and I had to sit at a desk and talk about Bugs Bunny and Popeye and Mr. Magoo and do a Coke ad and what have you. So it was quite strange. It was, and then 3 weeks after that, I thought I landed the job and thought, isn't it incredible? You can make such an idiot of yourself and get somewhere in this business.
Me? Yeah, my mother just rang, and two lovely sisters are coming up from Geelong. Two sisters.
Oh.
She asked me to entertain them, but I thought you'd be the guy for
Right, that's tremendous, Bert.
It's my pleasure. Listen, they'll be arriving shortly, so I'll go downstairs and wait for them. As soon as they arrive, I'll send them up.
How can I thank you enough? That's tremendous of you.
Darryl, that's what friends are for. Isn't he fantastic? Come on, Red. Oh, two girls. Oh, boy. I like the place. Must be the two sisters from Geelong. Come in.
I hosted IMT twice, once in '73, although at that stage it was called the Graham Kennedy Show, and Graham took a holiday for no other reason that he deserved one, and Jim McKay, who was the program manager here at the time, rang me and said, Darryl, would you like to fill in for Graham?
How am I going so far? All right? Thank you. You've given me confidence. This, of course, is the biggest moment of my career.
Ozzy and I lasted 23 years, and that was a long time for Ernie, who, when he retired at 65 or 66, had his arm up an ostrich for a long, long time. Ozzy was very much an important part of my early career.
Darryl, I'm a bit upset.
Yes? Why?
Upset I am, because it looks as if you're going to be a big star on the night telly, and I'm going to lose you, and I'm not going to have you on the kids' show, and I'm going to be on my own. Oh.
I have that performing streak there, and I love performing.
For you and me, I'm sure you'll see. That is how it's gonna be. Just come with me.
Probably I could paraphrase my first words on television, which were, "Hi, I'm Darryl Summers, and I'll be here for as long as you'll have me."
Gee, Bruce, I wonder what would have happened to him if he hadn't gone into television.
I guarantee he'd be still playing the drums.
Drumming is my life.
That's marvellous.
Phil, I haven't had a chance to say hello.
And many more of them. I hope you're still here in another 10 years.
We'll discuss that later. Where'd you get your suit from?
Do you like it? It's a Peter Jackson creation. And it's double-breasted. And it's got brass buttons. And what do you think? How could you sum it up in a word?
You can't do that. You can't sum it up in a word.
Do you like it?
Yes and no, Phil.
How do you think it'd look on you, Gray? Could you see
wrong.
yourself?
Wrong for me. Wrong. No, it's more you than me.
It's very Carnaby Street, don't you feel?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You could say that. You can tell the difference, can't you, between one off the hook and a 90-quid one? Sorry, Phil, go on.
How did you know this was a 90-quid one?
Oh.
I am ashamed to even be working with that coat. That is disgraceful.
A Peter Jackson special.
Oh.
I was something of a toff in the 1970s.
Yeah.
In fact, I still wear that coat occasionally to weddings and so on, although I may give it away to the Salvation Army.
I don't think they'd even accept it. But commercials were an integral part of the shows, weren't they, in those days?
Yes, and you know, Bruce, sometimes the commercials ran for many minutes.
Well, I remember you had a commercial that was supposed to go for a minute.
How long did it run?
15 seconds.
I might have forgotten my lines.
Anything and everything could and did happen in live commercials.
Here's Judy Ann Ford.
Hello, everyone. You know, it is rather nice to be back tonight. And more especially,
It's especially nice to be back with such a good old friend as Robert Tim's Royal Special Coffee. It's a pleasure to talk about it again. You know, making good coffee is just as easy as making good tea, even when balloons are popping all around you.
As Frank Rich experienced, nothing was straightforward when doing live commercials with the King.
I say, it's a jumping log. Good. Smitty, with a smile on his face, the perfect frog. Hey-ho!
Oh, get off.
Said Anthony Rowley.
No, that's a struggle, wasn't it?
Beautiful, yes.
Jump to it, girls, yes. Better buy those top-taste Lavington logs tomorrow. You can buy, girls, you can have a very log of your own. Pop along to your supermarket or food store or milk bar and you have a bit of a Lamington log. That's lovely. Don't go away. Oh, it's Miffy. She keeps spraying her hair with Seedle. And since there was a time when Miffy's hair was like so much steel wool, but she went on to Seedle and now it's like Jex.
Miffy Marsh was another who got onto the live commercial merry-go-round.
Sorry, Miff, I'll just reverse you a little bit. That's better.
How'd you like some Australian cheese, Grace?
Yes, I'd love some.
Would you?
Yeah.
Whole half-pound of it at once?
Who could forget Bert Newson's impression of the Colonel?
Now, in this big dinner box, you get for yourself three pieces of chicken. You get gravy, you get a roll, which is not bad value.
When the commercials first came on, when a client came to the show for the first time and bought the commercial and gave us a script, and we rehearsed that script in the afternoon at commercial rehearsal, which, as I recall, eventually became 3:30 in the afternoon. In the early days, it was 7 o'clock at night, I think. And each commercial, each minute commercial or 30-second commercial, was given just that in rehearsal time. And we'd just read the script and the new client would say, oh, that's wonderful, that's how it's written, and look forward to going home watching the commercial. Well, when he saw the commercial, eventually, live on the show, in almost every case, it bore no resemblance whatsoever to what he'd seen rehearsed.
Now, all you have to do is pour on some Shell Guard dog shampoo.
Pardon me, one's hanging out. I'm sorry.
Would you put some water on it?
Some water? Yes. Not on me, Graham.
Sorry.
Not on me.
Now, you can use plenty of it. Don't be frightened. Dogs love it. Yes. Oh, that's a boy. Oh, look at that. Yeah. That's lovely, Carl. Come on, Carl, you dog. There. Sit.
Oh, pardon me.
Sit. Mind a bit.
And it doesn't affect you at all.
I threw that bucket!
Where's the bitch?
And would you believe this client actually came back for more?
Shell Guard dog shampoo is specially designed for dogs. Look, it's not just any old shampoo shoved into a bottle with dog written on it. No, sir.
May I tell you, it contains glycerin, which acts as a moisturiser, and it cleans his skin as well as his coat. So when you use it on your dog, make sure you rub it in hard, won't you?
It has lots of lather. It has lots of lather so that your dog's coat gets really clean and shiny. Look what Shell Guard has done for Bert Newton since I shampooed him last week.
Oh, what a bad thing.
Look how good he looks. His coat is shiny.
His little nose is moist. Yeah, it is, too. And he finds it damn near impossible to go past a tree without...
No, don't. That's disgraceful. By the way...
Shut your big face!
The phone would ring very early next morning to the sales department at 9, and the client would cancel because of the dreadful things said and done by Graham and/or Graham and Bert the night before. Then round about 11 o'clock, usually on that same morning, they rang through to buy more time when they realised their product was just running out the doors. The commercial last week, didn't sell very much dog shampoo.
Oh, no, wasn't that funny last week in the bath?
It was hilarious. You must have had a ball, did you?
I'm not saying anything.
Oh. And from flogging of one kind to flogging of another, World Championship Wrestling.
I want to ask you something. Was wrestling rigged?
Oh, no. It was a genuine sport. And here on a Sunday morning, you'd find a great group of people, particularly continental women, forcing themselves toward the wrestling match. Do you remember?
Mario Milano, among others. Lord Such, I think, was another one.
I didn't know the girls' names, but the wrestlers were fantastic.
We're speaking to you from Festival Hall in the wildest war we've seen in 1973. Mark Lewin drop kicking Bulldog Brower. Mark Lewin and Killer Carl Cox against Abdullah the Butcher and Dick the Bulldog Brower. What a bruising, brawling match. And
I was really lucky to be Jack Little's understudy because there was a man who had been in the sport of wrestling as a commentator since 1932, and then he came to Australia in 1952 and started wrestling commentary at the West Melbourne Stadium in those days, and then came the big time of the World Championship Wrestling, which is the biggest era Australia's ever had on wrestling.
here's the man that absolutely had the strength of 10 men in that ring and went berserk, Dick the Bulldog Brower. You bum, you suckered me in that ring when I wasn't watching you, cock, and you picked me up, and you hurt my neck, cock. You hurt my neck. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to crush you. You can't hurt me, cock. You can't hurt me, cock.
It was fantastic money. Very, very good money. As a matter of fact, if you don't mind, I tell you my wages when I came to Australia, that was a guarantee. Everything pay, and I was earning $800 a week, guarantee. When I got the title, I got the 800 plus percentage for the title and everything pay. And the average wages that those years, they were $35, $50 a week.
Right now, it's Killer Carl Cox in there against Milano Mario with a side headlock.
Well, Mario Milano these days, part-time resident, and I enjoy it, and I will always. That is my life.
I can still hear him sitting beside him in Studio One. It was in those days for the recording of the bouts.
Oh, it's getting very close here. It'll be a submission hold. On he goes. Wham! Bam! Thank you, ma'am. That's all there isn't any more. How about that? We'll be back after these few important messages. Don't go away. Well, out of nowhere, Chief, what do you use? Here he comes, and he lays Big Bad Jan down. He's going absolutely berserk, and so is every man, woman, and child.
Eddie Crystal returns for the big way in this business, Mr. Peter Smith. Hello, Peter.
Well, Terry, how are you?
Oh, that was very cruel, Bruce. You can send me up, but not Pete Smith. Pete's a very good friend of mine and very touchy.
He's a good friend of mine, but he was always in the booth. I was putting the kids through private education, stuck in the booth. People were doing comedy sketches, and I was left out. I was sick of it, and I wanted to do something about it, so I did. Here.
I feel pretty,
Ellen, Joffa Boy.
A chappie who's ever so happy and glad that his dad was a lad.
Well, as you know, comedy is the basis of all variety shows. They get a comic, then they build a show.
Don't let the damn TV crews in.
Very funny, Joyce.
Well, I tell you what, Joyce, they can't say I don't try. I think you'll have to get some paraffin oil, Joyce. Then I can fix that squeaky hinge as well. Kill two birds with the one stone.
I'll put it on the shopping list. Now sit down and have your private colic zone.
Have me what?
Private colic zone.
Primacolic. What are you talking about, George? That's spaghetti, isn't it?
It's Italian for breakfast, George. I read it in the paper.
Primacolic.
And I cooked that lovely spaghetti in honour of that Italian president that's coming to visit us.
Is the Italian president coming to visit us? I'd better put on my coat then.
Spaghetti, eh?
Wilson.
Do you know, I used to be in the Wilsons. I played a character called Father Malley. I used to come visit. Do you remember me?
No, I can't remember that.
Obviously, he made an impact.
We're going to meet a man now whose face we didn't see, but we saw part of his body every week on Channel 9.
Oh, yeah, talking about Ernie Carroll, who goes back to the very early days of Channel 9.
Well, thanks for blowing the surprise.
I was working in radio for quite a few years in the country radio. I didn't make it to the city. And I was a freelance cartoonist at the same time. And I managed to talk Norm Spencer into believing that this ability in radio for the sound and the visual with the cartooning was a wonderful combination. And he agreed and gave me a job.
We can all go to Santa's workshop, all of us.
What?
In my Santa copter.
Oh, what's the Santa copter?
Well, the Santa copter is a new invention of mine. I've just finished inventing it. Have you?
I decided to go in and do another character. There was a slight difference in the character, so we called him Professor Ratbaggy. But he was just a mad professor who came up with odd inventions and generally bumbled around the place, bumping into things.
Good on earth, Professor, what's that? Well, that's the Santa copter, of course. Is it really? See, you sit in there, it holds 4 people, and there it is, a Santa copter.
Graham asked me to write some comedy for him. So that was a great thrill, and I did that, and that's how I got into IMT. Our day was to come in the morning and go through the newspapers, like the time when David's statue came to Myers. We got a week out of that.
I think my favourite one is this one. I really do. Very clever one. And also, they come in, you know, various shapes and sizes. Poor old David. What a lot of fuss about something that's been hanging around for 500 years.
I found Graham Kennedy to be a very generous performer. I had the opportunity to work with him with Ozzy, and we did some 5-minute bits in IMT over a period of time, and they were a lot of fun.
I mean, Ozzy, of course I care.
You don't care at all.
Oh, Ozzy, you know I care. What makes you think I don't care?
Well, I sent you that letter over there. I sent it to you, and I said, Dear Gray, I feel depressed.
Yes, because...
and by the time you get this, I will have shot myself.
Oh, is that a no?
Well, I think it was my best experience in television, and I often look back on it and wonder where all those wonderful days went.
Well, every show had the wheel.
Yeah, but sadly we don't have time to spin the wheel, Bruce.
No, if we did have time, you could have won a Dick Wicks back support.
Or a hairstyling from Mr. Emilio of Berkeley Street, St Kilda.
A magnificent meal at Barb and Oz's, where the flames lick up Barb's rump every Friday night.
We have to go, Bruce. Until next time, we'll look forward to seeing you for our third special, folks.
What about this next time? What's that all mean?
Well, I'll tell you in a moment. Good night,
Good night, everyone. Listen,
Ian Johnson's had me in front office, and he'd like a series of Philip Brady 1 hour.
Oh, well, if you're doing it alone.
No, but you can come in and do some...
No, I wouldn't.
Next on 9, secrets and lies take their toll on the
Mild descent.